Welcome to She Talks, a series where we talk to women who are independent, who are strong, who are vulnerable, women who've seen success but have also battled failure. These are real women, and what's common to them is that they all have stories, and these stories inspire. Hi, I'm Richa Sinha, and I run a startup called She Wealth, a financial education platform for women. Using courses around money management and investing and a community of women wealth creators, we're trying to make women financially aware, educated, and independent. So I have a very special guest with me today, Vinya. Now, let me introduce her as I talk about her. She has a very unique story, very inspiring. Somebody who's been an educator for almost 22 years, worked in the United States of America, and now in India. She's been through different stages of special education and general education. And we'd like Vinaya to talk more about how she got inspired to work in this very specific domain and run her startup now, which is called Fingerprints Learning Collective. Why Fingerprints? We let her talk and tell us. So,
Hi,
Vidya, thank you
Richa.
so much for doing this with us, and I'm so glad you chose to share your story with us and tell us how your journey's been. And so I always say that we all have unique journeys, and maybe your journey is nothing like mine or anybody else watching this, but there's certain lessons which are very universal, and that is what I'm interested in. How is it that your life lessons can help somebody, can help me, or can help anyone going through a certain phase in life? So yes, whereas we're all very excited to hear all the great work that you're doing in the area of special education. uh, Tell us something about yourself first. We'd like to know the person behind the entrepreneur. So take us back to your childhood. Tell us how that was. Where were you growing up? What were you doing?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Richa. I love what you do. I love your mission, and it's so nice to be here, and it's so nice to do this. So thank you for doing this. Um, I'm basically from Ooty, the mountains. I'm a mountain girl. And, when I was very young, I wanted to be a nun. I was so inspired by all these missionary stories and stories of service. So I thought the best way to be of service would be to be a nun. And I remember my maths teacher actually talked me out of it. And it was actually a money story she gave. So you would like this. So she basically said, we were walking together back home one day and she said, okay, so let's do some maths, Vinya. And I was like, okay, Ms. Indu. Her name is Ms. Indu. And she said, let's say a housewife has 2,000 rupees a month to, for her home expenses. And let's say if vegetable oil costs 100 rupees, then she has to buy rice and wheat and all these groceries. And then she sets aside money to do service. Now, you tell me, what is more valuable, that kind of service, or you just going away and trying to, praying for the world? What is better? That's how she put it to me. And I said, I guess both are valuable, but I can definitely see, it sounds more practical to me to be able to do what the housewife does. So that's kind of, and it's so funny. It
Wow.
was a money story. Yeah. So, so that's kind of,
Interesting. Yes. Yeah.
yeah. So, there's a friend of mine, her mother used to be a very popular doctor in Connor, close to Ooty, where I grew up. So we were just talking about, exam results and what to study. And I said, Auntie, I really wish I could do something that is service oriented and also interesting. And she said, oh, have you heard of special education? And I'd never heard about it before. And I asked her, no, I don't know what is it. And she said, it's basically a course to teach children with all kinds of special needs or disabilities. And as soon as I heard her say it, I just felt like, oh my God, this is it. This is exactly what I want to do. And there was no looking back after that.
How
We
old were
found a
you?
college.
How old were
This
you?
was right after 12th, after grade
Okay.
12, when we were doing the whole what course to take kind of discussions. And the nearest city is Coimbatore from Ooty and Kannur. And
Mhm.
they had the course there. And it was like an option of either special education in physics or special ed in math. So I chose to do the course. And so when I was young, it was more, I kind of liked doing all these like social league things and things like that. it was nice. I grew up in a village near Ooty. So yeah,
Tell me
and
something about
my
your
dad,
parents. Tell me something about your
yeah,
parents and,
I
growing
will.
up.
Yeah. My dad retired from the army, and my mom used to work for a government office in Ooty. So my dad always used to tell my mother, I don't want you to raise her thinking, she has to protect herself and she's a woman. I want her to be courageous enough to do whatever she wants. So he would actually send me to buy groceries. So we lived in a village away from Ooty, about 10 kilometers away. So he would actually send me all the way to Ooty just to buy, some small thing. And he'll do it intentionally. So I would come back on my own and I would not have the fear of I need somebody with me. And so I think he always pushed me to kind of be courageous. And there was never this gender disparity in our house. So I remember one day a helper came home and he said, Amma, Nikki, you're not going to do any work. You're just going to sit there and tell my children to work. And he made her sit and he made her tell us how to mop the house. And, so he used to do all these experiments where he would teach us things and he wanted us to be independent. So
How
I
lovely
think
is
that
that?
definitely,
Because, I think managing a home, cooking, or,
yeah,
managing your money, I think all of these are life skills that everybody should know. And this should be beyond your financial status or, your education. Like literally every person on this planet should know these are almost survival skills. You have to know how to manage a house. You have to know how to take care of things. So it's not just getting educated to probably pursue a career or take up a job, but basic life skills that should be a part. And how wonderfully you've learned all of these growing up. So awesome.
yeah.
I mean, we need more parents like that. We definitely need more children like you. So all right. So what subject did you take up for college? So you
Then
chose
I
special
ended up
ed
I and physics,
and physics.
but that was
Okay.
because I had no choice. It was either math or physics, and for some reason I thought, okay, maybe I can handle physics. But
Mm.
honestly, I just got by the physics part. Yeah. So yeah, college was really fun. I used to be very. It was very different from having grown up in Ooty. This was in Coimbatore, and we had to wear saris once every week, and so it was
Wow.
a whole different setup. And yeah, I was very active in Rotaract, the youth wing of Rotary.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to do a lot of like projects there, and yeah, it was really nice to do all that.
So you've been a very socially aware child from the very beginning, is what I understand. Your upbringing and also your interests, have always been to probably serve the society in some way or the other, whether it was becoming a nun or taking up special ed as a career. So okay, so where did college education take you? What kind
So
of career options were available for you? What did you do once you finished your college?
yeah, so the idea that they had of having special ed in physics or special ed in math was we could choose to either go to a special school to teach or we could go into general education. So that's why they gave us those two career options through
Mm.
that stream. So I definitely chose special ed. So it was nice to go through those 4 years. But right after that, when I got my first job was in Bangalore. I chose to work here in Bangalore for a special school. And I was so excited. I was like, this is my first job and, I'm going to make a huge difference. And I moved here. And I remember the first day when I went to my classroom, I was given, I think like 13, 14 children, and they were in the age group of 6 to 24. And I was like 21 or something back then. And the
Wow.
children had very different kind of needs and I didn't know what to do. Can you imagine after 4 years of studying for this profession, going into your first job and you don't know what to do? And you know how in India we respect teachers so much. So the
Mm.
parents were really looking up to me and they had so much faith in me and they were really hoping I'll make a difference for their child's life. And I would be like, oh my God, I really need to figure out what to do. And whatever I've studied for 4 years hasn't really practically helped me in handling these children. So, of course, my college gave me a lot more, but in this particular aspect, I felt very lost.
And
So I
I think,
decided,
I think that's true for many other streams of education.
yeah,
You
exactly. Yeah,
spend 3, 4 years in college, and then suddenly you realize you don't know practically what to do on the job. And there's so much of unlearning and relearning stuff. And well, so I think, your case wasn't any different. So,
Yeah, yeah,
what helped? I mean, how did you? Because I understand, you were venturing into a field where you had to deal with people with different needs. Every day, every child would be different, every student would be different.
yeah.
So,
So what
what
happened
was your
was,
support system? How were you learning to navigate through this whole situation?
honestly, I was just lost that first year of working. And I really didn't know how to support my children, but I also really wanted to make a difference. So that's when I decided I'll just go to study. I'll just go abroad to study. Really, Rich, I wish I have that kind of confidence now. So, my friends who were applying for like MS in engineering and all of that, they would apply to like five, six schools, hoping that at least one school would come through. So I remember I looked up the grad school rankings, and University of Kansas back then was the first in special ed in the United States. And I was like, you know what, if I go, I'll just go to the best. And I applied, and I'm like, I'm not even going to apply anywhere else. I only want to go to the best. I don't have that confidence now, but back then, back then I did. So I applied, I waited for my results, and thankfully I got in. So
Wow.
after working for 1 year, I got my visa. I didn't get funding. So, and this
Okay,
is the other
let
thing.
me interject here, because I'm also interested in all the life decisions that you've been taking all along. Now you chose to go to the United States for to study. So this was a master's degree,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Now, so what does one do if somebody say they've done their graduation undergrad from India? How does one try get into the the American university system? What exams do you
So,
take?
yeah. So the first criteria is it has to be a 4 year degree. So, if it's not a 4 year degree, if you've done a 3 year degree, then you do at least 1 year of post graduation. So you're eligible for applying for, this is for, I'm just talking about masters.
Hmm.
And so you have to do your TOEFL and then you have to do your GRE. So those
And
are the
what
two
is a good
exams.
GRE score?
Honestly, I don't know. They've changed it so much in the years
Hmm.
now. That this was back in 2004. So they've
Okay.
changed it now, and I wouldn't even know right now. Back then, I don't even remember what it was. But I'm happy to give that information later. You can look it up. So yeah, so then it's just a matter of applying to different universities, and they have admission counselors. I think it's a lot easier now.
Mhm.
Many of the good schools have admission offices here, and they have liaison with the, student admission counseling offices in many places in India. So back then, I didn't have that kind of a resource.
Okay,
Now it's a lot more
just
easier.
taking you back a little, uh, the way you've described your upbringing and your family, you were clearly, you had an upbringing which was a typical middle class upbringing in a
Yeah,
small town, right?
correct.
Now, a foreign education definitely would be very expensive. How does one manage that? Did you have student loan, or did you have some waivers? How was that manageable?
Yeah, honest. So that I was going to just say that, right? So my father, he was retiring from the army then. And he actually said, you can take a big chunk of that money. And I honestly, I don't know if even I would do it. He was just like, you want to study, you want to go, do what you want to do. And I think that was there was so much faith my parents had in me because see, special education is not a well-known course even now. Back then, even more so. So for them
Mm,
to have the faith, that okay, because people used to always talk about engineering and medicine, as you know, in
yes.
most middle class homes when we
Yeah.
were growing up, right? So he said I can take part of his money, and I actually took that. Then the remaining was education loans.
Mm,
And then once I went there, I just took up student jobs for my living expenses. And then
okay.
when I started working, I repaid back my loans. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Great. So, so you spent how many years doing your masters? 2 years?
Masters was just 2 years. Yeah,
Okay.
2 years. Then I
And
decided
and
to
then
work for
what?
some. I decided to work for some time, and then I was deciding if I should do a PhD or come back. I
Mm,
decided it will be better for me to work because I realized sometimes what happens when we keep studying is we're so far away from the actual work, right?
yeah.
And actual work seems so different from what we learn in academia. So I
Mm,
decided I'm just going to work. So I worked, and somehow I got the most challenging jobs because visa sponsorship was not an easy thing. So I
mm,
ended up getting a job in a residential mental health treatment facility for children. So they wanted me to set up the kindergarten first grade program for them. So that's how I started my career there. So then, I taught for a couple of years. I had a fantastic team. We implemented some great programs for these children, and we were able to send. So the way it works in the education system there is you have a general ed school, then you have a school with a special day class, with a resource room, or you have a special school, or then you have a residential. So in the continuum of services, this is the most severe that someone can come to. And if children didn't do well here, they would go to a juvenile hall.
Okay.
So we actually ended up sending 80% of our children back to the public school system because the children did
Wow.
very well with us. So that was humongous. I had a great team. We did some amazing things together, behavior management system and rewards, and we did all kinds of fun things. So yeah, did that. Then I became the assistant principal of that school. Then I became a principal. And then I went on to work for a school district. But I always knew that I needed to come back here. By now it was 12 years, So I decided
Okay.
if I don't come, yeah,
Mm.
so if I don't come back, then, it'll just become harder to come back, right? When you get so
Yeah.
used to being in a different country. And I
Mm.
really wanted to come back here and build a support system for parents and teachers. So then I moved back to India.
Awesome. Vinaya, if you were to look back on your school and college education in India and in the US, what are some very key differences in terms of the skills that they teach you? I'm not even talking about curriculum or the kind of exposure that these two would give you, because here you were in a very small town school, and suddenly you're in in America. So I'm not talking about that, but I'm just talking about the skills that you picked up. And how do you think those have shaped you, or how do you translate those into your entrepreneurial life now? So what skills did you learn when you were in India, school, college, and then what did you pick up from the US?
That's such a good question. Um, See, I think India prepares us in such a both these places have built me in such beautifully different ways that have complemented each other, right? I think there's so much benefit to our Indian education system. And I'm talking about the rigor, the level of academic content that we can learn here. And even the educational system, I think we have a very strong education system. Of course, we can do a lot to improve, but when I look at, for example, in school and OT, language was so, I mean, the way we were taught language, I can do creative writing pretty well now because of my English teacher. We had an amazing, she would give us, story starters like how foolish I was to have believed that young man, write about it. And we will be like, whoa, and imagine, right, teenagers, we'll just like go with it, So they used to give very interesting story starters and activities for us to build on. I love that. And I told you about my math teacher a little while ago. And like our teachers were so dedicated and they did the best they could for us. And I felt very loved and attended to. So that was one thing here. And also, I told you about the value system. We used to do these socially camps. We used to go to different villages and do different kind of welfare activities. And I think it opens your eyes up to the other world where there are people who need so much. And it is
Yeah.
up to those of us who have the privilege and the education to look out for our brothers and sisters who don't have that. So
Mm.
I think those kind of values was so strongly taught here in my school. And the Coimbatore College, it's called Avinash Lingam. It was based on Swami Vivekananda's teachings. And,
Yeah.
because I grew up since I studied in a convent, it was a different kind of a space, right? So going
Mm.
into a Hindu university was very different for me. And that was also refreshing in its own way. That's when I realized, oh, I come from a Hindu family and, I want to understand my religion even more. And so that was, and wearing a sari. I mean, I think that's so beautiful, right? How many of us can wear a sari? So things like that, wearing a sari, and we would take off our footwear when we go into the auditorium. So earlier I used to think, why are we doing all these things? But then later, I think it's such a beautiful way to inculcate so many parts of our tradition, which
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
So India, I guess, gave me all that. So then going to the West. So I remember the first ever course I took in my grad school was an elective course on speech language disorders. And that was for speech therapists. And they didn't tell me this. My background is not speech therapy, right? My background is special ed. So I was so lost in that course and I didn't know how to do it. And this is my very first course, and my confidence was crushing. But what I love about the system there is, it gives you the space to take a lot of ownership. So, we were given a lot of open-ended assignments and activities where we had to do a lot of research, where we had to figure out a lot of things ourselves. So that part of it was nice. So I had a lot of time to kind of do my own readings, to figure things out, to really understand. So I love that. And also it was
Mm.
very practical. So we had to do a lot of, practical assignments and a lot of reflective exercises. So I think
Yeah.
US helped me to realize that I have the power to make change, you know,
Mm.
and sometimes we don't, right? I think our culture here kind of, I don't know, we just learn to kind of go with the flow, to be part of the system, to fit in, to conform, right? I feel like
Mm.
sometimes our culture does that to us here. And there, I feel like I got my wings to fly. So
Mm.
coming back now, I feel like, okay, I have that part of me and I have this part of me. So let's combine it and do something beautiful out of it.
Yeah, yeah. So, almost like India gave you roots into your values and your, basics, and then perhaps America gave you those wings to fly. So, such a lovely combination. So then you came back to India, and is that when you just started your uh, entrepreneurial venture? How did that happen? Why
So
was it
actually,
important for you to turn an entrepreneur? Because you were doing something clearly that you loved, and you found meaning in that. Why was it important for you to make it into a business, and take on the additional responsibility of making it a profitable business, where you're also thinking about not just educating children and making a difference to their lives, but kind of maybe creating employment opportunities for a team that you would hire, or making money for your venture to probably be self-sustainable. Why did you even get into this
gosh, Richa,
sphere?
your questions are so good. You're like really taking me to the back, all the way to the past and making me think through each thing. That's awesome. So, see, couple of things, right? One is I always worked as part of systems. I was working for school districts, nonprofits there in the US, and coming back here, I worked in different setups to see where I would fit in. So, this is the other thing that happened. I got a big reality check coming back to India. I thought I'll be welcome with open arms because I was preparing myself so much for all those years, doing all these courses and certificates and degrees. But guess what? There was no red carpet. Forget about a red carpet. I was told that I might not even get a professor position because in India, if you want to apply for a professor position, you have to have two master's degrees and not one. And yeah, I didn't know that. And I was like, wait, what? I need two
Really?
master's degrees. Couldn't you just convert my certificates,
Hmm.
into a equivalent kind of thing? And they said no. So I was shocked because I didn't expect that coming back, right? Especially because I was dreaming so much of preparing myself to come back. So that was a big reality check. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to just do a master's degree because I want to fit into some eligibility criteria. I'm not going to do that because at this
Hmm.
point in my life, having an extra graduate degree is not going to serve my purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to just do it for the sake of doing it. So I chose not to take that path. I took up an administrative national role for, our statutory council and special ed. So basically, I did many different things to figure out where will I be able to make the most impact and bring my expertise and knowledge. So I tried doing a national role. I tried consulting with Tamil Nadu state. I did many different things. And I even worked as a principal for a school. I used to volunteer for little government schools in Wayanad and Kerala. So I did all kinds of things for a few years. And somewhere I realized, I was trying so hard to fit into existing systems. And then I was like, why do I need to fit into existing systems if my dream is to create a support system that really focuses on parents and addresses the gaps? So why can't I just do it myself? So it was a very organic, I mean, I always wanted to create something of my own, but have working in these different setups helped me realize it's just better to create something on my own. So that's
Hmm.
kind of how that happened. And I was also married briefly for 3 years when I moved back. So I think my personal journey and then my professional journey, and somewhere you just realize, life is especially, and then COVID came. So then you're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, mortality is a real thing. You're seeing people dying. I think every family lost at least one or two people during
Yes.
COVID, right?
Yeah.
Almost every family. So it was a combination of many different things. And then my dad went through cancer, and my dad's touch wood, he's doing really well now. So a lot of things happened. And so I realized if I want to do something, do it now. That was one. And the
Yeah.
second thing was, there is no point in looking out, and saying, wow, this is not working or that is not working. It's up to us to create it and to build the world that we want. I know it sounds very cliche, but
No, but
those were
I
kind of,
think, I think the pandemic, COVID has done that to a lot of us. The way we think about life in general has changed so significantly for people across age groups. And you want to question your fundamentals and seek happiness in the small things that you're doing every day. Because literally, I mean, for 2 years, 3 years, we were trapped in this pandemic, try and just learning the importance of how much frivolous and how fleeting life in
yeah.
general is. So
No.
yeah, awesome,
So
awesome. So okay, I'm curious. So I definitely have a few adjectives that come to my mind when I think look at you as a person. But how would you describe yourself? What do you think are your top two or three adjectives that describe you?
purpose is
Mm-hmm.
one, um, compassion, and what else? Autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, whereas empathy and compassion, all of that becomes very comes as a very obvious thing, even to somebody who's spoken to you for like 30 minutes. But I think you've also been a very strong and very courageous decision taker, because you've taken some very radical decisions at different points, and maybe going through life, one does not realize, but then suddenly from a small town, dreaming so big that you can go to America to study on your own, spend like over a decade there, and then again to come back to work for some places, and then decide, okay, if this isn't working, maybe I'll start something on my own. These aren't things that people do regularly. So it's brave, it's refreshing, it's just so inspiring to see that, it's okay. It's like so wonderful to dream and to work towards getting your dreams fulfilled. Awesome. So,
Yeah, especially, right, as a teacher, I feel as an educator, when I tell my children, you have so much potential, you can do whatever you want, I can't be a hypocrite there. I have to show them that I've done it myself.
yes,
I think
yes,
especially when you're like guiding children and parents, you have to be able to quote from your own life and say, hey, you can do this. If I can do this, you can do it. And I will not tell you to do something that I wouldn't have tried myself. So
absolutely. Yeah, and a teacher that's walking the talk. There's no better inspirational figure for a student than that. So, you now live in Bangalore, and you're running this startup, which is like so wonderfully now. The idea has been though you did not need that validation, but then you're incubated by the IM Bangalore. So yeah, I mean, a little validation
where we
doesn't
met,
harm.
that's how we know each other. Yay.
Yes. Yeah, so that is what we have in common. All right. So, Pina, tell me something. As somebody who's been so independent all her life, I want to take you, on a little rapid fire question around money. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, of course, you are driven by a purpose which is beyond money. You're talking of social impact and impacting lives of children. But I also know that you are an entrepreneur at the end of it. So, we
Yes.
cannot shy away from acknowledging we have an equation with money. And I'm
Can I tell you something right there? This is very
yes,
important what you just highlighted. So the fact that, see, I've always worked in non-profits, I told you, right? I made a very conscious decision to build a for-profit initiative. So when I registered my company, I didn't register it as a trust. I registered it as a private limited company because I'm very clear that this is going to be a sustainable, profitable business. So I had to work through my own money block. We can definitely do a lot of good while we make money, right? So that's something I needed to work on. I thought you need to live a very simple life and kind of not charge for your services. So I have made that transition, and that's why I'm making it into a for profit.
how lovely. Absolutely. And there's nothing to feel guilty about
Yeah.
trying to make money, because I think that is also a notion that a lot of us fight in our minds, that thinking about money, talking about money, managing money is kind of taken very negatively in certain areas. But really, I mean, we all get educated, we all work, we earn, we are taught from even if you go ask a 3-year-old, what do you want to become when you grow up, they'll say doctor, engineer. And then that okay, at some point they will make money and they'll maybe sustain a lifestyle. So yes, I mean, it is just so important to know how to do that. And so,
Yeah.
which is where I will want to just check a few things with you. How has your equation with money been? And you can be very brief in your responses. So
Okay.
yeah, what emotion does money invoke in you? Are you fearful of money? Are you scared of money? Are you do you enjoy making a lot of money? Do you enjoy spending a lot of money? What is it?
It's a very, I feel overwhelmed when I think of it, because it was something, I'll try to keep my response brief. It's very overwhelming when I think of it. So I'm trying to kind of create a better relationship now and to feel excited about it. So
Okay. Uh, so are you a spender? Are you or are you somebody who is very
I'm a reckless spender.
okay?
And
And how
I
how do you
am.
bring it
So now
down?
yeah, honestly, I mean, as in, I don't, I'm not the kind who can think, okay, so you've just set aside, like, say, 5,000 for outside food this month. I can't stick to budgets like that. But now
Mhm.
I'm bootstrapping, and I have to. So just literally 2 weeks ago, I created a spreadsheet for the first time in my life to track my expenses. And I
Oh.
was so surprised, Richa, how much money I'm spending just in snacks and outside food and things like that. I mean, just to even see
Yes.
it, it's very empowering to be able to.
It's a very important exercise when you want to start financial planning, to at least be aware of your expenses,
Correct.
because you don't realize it's so easy to, it's not even like you have to take out cash from your wallet. It's like, just enter a pin and then your expenses made. You
Yes.
don't realize money going out of your life like that. But yes, I mean, you sit down and you look at all of these apps, from Amazon to Big Baskets to Swiggy, Zomato, and you realize thousands and thousands every month are going into all of that. So yeah,
Exactly.
I'm not saying you curb your expenses, but at least be aware of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your costliest purchase, the most
Hmm.
expensive thing you owned.
It's not now, but it's so ironic, right? So the 12 years I lived in California, I drove an old rickety car. And then the last year I was there, I decided to make a purchase of a brand new car. I bought it, and then within months of buying it, I decided to move back. So I lost a lot of money selling it. So I think, yeah, that's one.
Oh, great. Of course, so I would have asked you about a good money habit and a bad money habit, but I think, I will probably, just take that from you, from your previous answers, and say that probably, learning to deal with money is something that you talk about as something that you plan to do. Um,
Yes, and I would say a good money habit I'm building now is I'm consciously trying to write affirmations on prosperity and abundance so I can remove those
mm,
blocks and really,
yeah.
it starts with, I think it's very important I say it. It starts with our own worthiness, right? If I believe that I can make, say, for example, 5 lakhs a month, and if I look for a job, I will look for jobs that will pay 5 lakhs a month. If I don't believe it, I won't even look for it. So
Yeah.
it all starts with what you think for yourself. And if you don't believe it, you're going to restrict your own opportunities. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so affirmations, I think not just for money, but in general, positive affirmations really work. I've, honestly, this is something I'm trying to do myself. I haven't honestly been doing it, but I see a lot of people around me who say it helps. So, yeah. So people
Yeah.
who are
It helps our
watching this might
mindset,
want
right?
to
It helps
try
us.
this
Yeah.
might want to try this out and see how that works. Creating vision boards and doing all of that. So
Correct, because it opens up a whole world of possibilities,
yeah,
right? See, I
yeah,
told you, I've gone through some challenging times, and it's very important for us to be able to look at, to dream, to look at possibilities. So
yeah,
it helps in that sense.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome, Vinaya. So, so that is all that I have for you right now. But this was lovely talking to you, and honestly, you're one of the most inspiring people I've met in recent times. So driven by purpose, so deeply driven by purpose. Honestly, I mean, it's such a rare sight where from a very young age you've been meaning to do something and you ended up working in that area and you still feel so passionately about that. So,
Thank you,
Vidya,
Richa.
is there any way that people can be associated with you in your journey? Somebody watching this, maybe what if they feel, okay, this is something that resonates with me and I want to do something around this, or maybe, get associated with Vinya
Oh, I
or,
would love for people to just reach out to me. I would love to connect. I will,
yeah.
after our conversation, I'll just drop my email and my phone number. Feel free to share
Yes,
it
so
on the.
I will try and link those up, in the
Yes.
description so that it's easier for people to get in touch with you and associate in any
And I
form.
want to tell, yeah, and Richa, I love what you're doing. I think it takes a certain level of, perspective to be able to look at another person's journey, to appreciate the nuances, to ask the right kind of questions. And this was so enjoyable. And what you're doing is amazing. I love your mission and I love what you stand for.
Thank you so much. And great. I hope to see you sometime soon. And
Yes.
it was lovely for you to spend this time with us.
Same here,
All
Richa. Big
right.
hugs.
Bye
Thank you. And thanks, everyone.
bye.
Bye.